You don't need magic to disappear for a while, because Firestone tires were built for ticking off mile markers. Firestone Destination LE3 tires for 70,000 miles of exploring. Whatever you drive, drive a Firestone.
Welcome to Johnny G and Friends. I'm Johnny G, and on today's special podcast here from Babcock Studios in good old Akron, Ohio, is Cara Krstolic, Executive Director of Race Tire Engineering and Manufacturing and Chief Engineer for Motorsports at Bridgestone Americas. Cara, welcome to the show.
Wonderful. Thanks for having me, Johnny G.
So I went into my closet, and even though it's about 15 years old, I got something to honor you and the podcast for today.
I love it. You've got the racing checkered flags, the Firestone, and the Music City hat. You were all decked out. It's perfect.
Thanks. So, Cara, you're a local girl from Akron. You graduated from University of Akron. Tell me about yourself growing up here in Akron, and then take me through your career at Bridgestone Firestone.
Well, I am very lucky to call both of my parents educators. So my mom was a high school science teacher, and my dad taught Spanish at the University of Akron.
Oh.
So I got that indoctrination to science at an early age. Thought science was fun. My mom had neighborhood science camps for the kids, so it was only evidential that I would end up working in racing. And my parents always encouraged whatever I wanted to do. My mom's father was actually an engineer for NASA. So
Wow.
When I was younger, when I thought about engineering, I thought about space shuttles. So when I was going into school, I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew I was pretty mechanical, hands-on. I didn't think the space shuttle program was going to be around very long after I graduated. So one of the things that I looked into is what other availabilities are there. And at University of Akron, they have a program called Formula SAE, where you design and build a small race car. So I started doing that. I started getting the knack for hands-on work, and really going from there to, is there a possibility that I could work in motorsports and actually get paid for it? That's crazy thing. But so I started looking around, seeing what job opportunities there were, and this job at Bridgestone came up, and one of the things that they were looking for is somebody with vehicle dynamics, or just really an entry-level position. I hired into the company and started working in our vehicle dynamics team. It's a team where you match the tire to the right vehicle. So the vehicle might say, oh, we've got a little bit of vibration on our car. Can you look into this and help us understand it?
Right.
So it's a really great starting point at Bridgestone. And then Paige Mater, who you know, he was the manager of race tire development at the time. And I introduced myself and I said, hey, I love racing. I would love to be able to work for your group someday. I think I would be a great engineer. Can you tell me what kind of person that you're looking for in a mechanical engineer in this role? He said, well, nobody's ever really talked to me about that or asked me about that. So he went to Dale Harrigal, who's the senior engineer at the time, and said, what are we looking for? So he came back a couple weeks later and said, okay, I talked to Dale. We're looking for somebody who can do computer programming, somebody that understands how vehicle dynamics work, and somebody that can help us characterize force and moment behavior of tires. So you take a tire, you put it on a test rig. What are the outputs that you can give to a race team to help them understand how to set up their car? So, well, I took a class in vehicle dynamics. I've got a very little knowledge, and I did Fortran 77 in college, which is ridiculous because it was written even before I was born. So I thought, okay, I'll learn. So I went out, I bought a textbook, and I studied, and I tried to understand as much as I could about engineering and about vehicle dynamics and about race car vehicle dynamics. And I volunteered for projects at work at my current role within Bridgestone to help me to get to that point where when they had the interview, they had no choice but to hire me because they gave me the answer key.
Oh, wonderful. That's, well, you've done a wonderful job throughout your career. So in your current role, you oversee tire development as well as production for all the IndyCar races and probably a few other. Describe a typical weekend, where you leave Thursday or Friday and you go to the race. Take me through the whole weekend.
Well, Johnny G, you're lucky because you've got me right in between Toronto and Iowa. So typically we'll leave on a Thursday. We'll go to the track. We do some track scanning. So we try to understand the friction characteristics of the racetrack itself. We do two different ways. We look at a laser scan of the area so we can tell you the roughness and how big the peaks are, how the spacing between the peaks on the concrete or the asphalt surfaces are. And then we also look at direct friction. So we're able to look at the overall friction value of that racetrack surface. We do an analysis, send that out to race teams. Friday morning we come in, we're set up for practice. Usually there's a practice or maybe two practices on Friday. Saturday is a practice and qualifying, and a typical Sunday is maybe a practice or a warm-up and a race. Fly back on Monday, rinse and repeat.
So once you get that information you just talked about at the racetrack, do you share that with the other teams, the Penske's, the Andretti's, the Ganassis, with the team engineers, the race car drivers, what?
So there's a lot of work we actually do before the race weekend. So even before the race weekend, we're sending them memos of what the compound characteristics look like, what to expect in the race weekend. When we get the track scanning data, we try to get that sent out before the very first practice session, so they have that. So all of the race teams have that. IndyCar has that. It's given us some pretty interesting things in the past and areas for the drivers and or teams to look out for. And then throughout the weekend, we're gathering more and more data to help us to drive our designs for the next year.
So that's probably where my next question goes to. You're collecting all this tire data. Can you go into specifics on how some of those data points that you collect and you use that information, how to form future tire developments?
Sure. So we have a few different things that we're doing at the racetrack. Let's take a street course, for example. We just finished with Toronto, but we're getting ready for Nashville. So while we were at the racetrack this past weekend, we are preparing for what we might see at Nashville. So anything that we take as far as tire temperatures or how the tires might be wearing, whether their teams are doing anything suspect with the tires, we're looking to see anything like that that can help us going into the next race. But then it also helps us going into the next design cycle. So there's similarities between all of our street courses are the same, and there's similarities between the other tires, but we might decide to make a design change on those tires based on either what we see at the racetrack or things that IndyCar or the series might be changing. So there's a lot of things that we're doing with the data at that point. A lot of it is live data. We get data right off the cars as they're on track. So if, for example, if we were looking at a car this weekend at Iowa, and let's say the left front pressure looked really, really high and the right front pressure looked really, really low, that might actually give us a reason to suspect that they might have switched the tires, they might be in the wrong place. So we monitor those really closely to make sure, first of all, everything is okay on the vehicle, and second of all, that they're not running outside of our recommendations as well. So we can immediately see what they're running and we can react right away.
So I remember at the inaugural race 2 years ago at Nashville, there was a lot of yellow flags. It was a tough race because it's a tight course. You know, you're going through the city and stuff. So do you have to then take that information and change the tire compounds or something? Or
So yes, you're not wrong. That was a very interesting race. It was so tight, and there was some braking areas where you're coming off a very, very high-speed straight right over the bridge,
yeah.
And then you have to turn hard right away. So if you don't get your braking points right, you're likely going into the wall. So we need to understand what the compounds are doing on a track like that. We need to understand just overall what the drivers think of the surfaces. And then sometimes we'll even work with the racetrack. So for that one, maybe a suggestion was we need to open up this turn a little bit more because we need to allow for a little bit better braking so we don't have as many cars going into the wall. With that one, there's nothing we can address with compound. It's maybe a little bit more of a factor of the course. But when we're there, we're always trying to understand, okay, for next year, are there any changes we need to make?
Right. Okay, good. So I saw a video of some engineers shaving tires after a race. I think they call it degradation. What are you looking for by doing this?
So when we design tires, we design them to go a fuel stint. So if you think about a IndyCar pit stop, it's very quick. Cars come in, fuel, tires, and out. It actually takes more time to put fuel in the car than it does to change all four tires. So teams like to change tires at every stop if they can. If they're only short filling, meaning they don't fill the fuel tank all the way up, then they might decide whether they really actually want to change the tires or not. So what they look at after each stint, and what you probably saw in the video, is they're taking the tires afterwards and they're trying to make sure they can get appropriate wear measurements. So we have wear indicators throughout the tread, all the way across the tire and all the way around the tire. So teams can look at that and see, are their tires wearing evenly? So when they get these measurements, this will help them understand, did I set up my suspension right? Do I have enough camber, or how much the tire tilts in? Was I running too much toe? So there's a lot of things that they can tell from the wear measurements that'll help them in the setup and the use of their car. They couple that with when they're done with the tire during the race goes over the pit wall. Our Firestone engineers are standing there with a pyrometer, which is basically, you think of it something like a thermometer that goes into the tire itself. So you're actually poking into the tread compound and you're getting temperatures 3 points across. So you can look at how even your wear is and then how much temperature distribution you actually have across one tire, and that can help you set up your car and run even faster.
So 1969, my good buddy Mario Andretti had an accident the day before, actually had some burned faces on his face. and his brother Aldo took the picture. But he tells a story that when he came in for his first pit stop, I think it was a left rear, they could not get it off, and he ended up going 500 miles on that left rear tire, and won the race. Would that ever happen in today's conditions with the cars now? Is it possible?
So yeah, that was an incredible story. He couldn't get the right rear tire off the car.
Right rear, okay.
Managed to go all 500 miles. It was an accident, but actually worked out well for him. It took him less time to actually, once they figured that out, less time to change the remainder of the tires. But in today's day and age, at some point, let's say the Indianapolis 500, they'll go through 8 sets of tires.
Wow.
We design our tires now specifically for racing tires. Previously, in Firestone's history, you were running the same tires on the race car that you were on passenger cars. So right around that time, it actually started to transition away. But there was a lot of tread. So if you think about the tires that Mario was running at the time, there's at least of a 1/4 inch or more of tread on those tires.
Okay.
Probably even upwards of a 1/2 inch on what he was running. Our treads on our super speedway tires are about 2 or 3 credit cards thick. So they're not quite as much tread as there is anymore. You have a lot more of aerodynamic downforces and aerodynamic loads that puts more wear and more use on the tires.
Right.
So they're really in a different operating range as what they did in Mario's day. So you could run a couple of stints on them, but at some point they're going to start to wear out. Once you wear off all that compound, you're now into the structure of the tire, and you don't want to run at that point because you're not going to have grip.
Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense. So now I'm going to go back in my history here, and 1992, I don't know, were you in high school by then?
1992, I was just a freshman in high school.
Oh, okay. So I'm walking out of our research center here in Akron, Ohio, right in front of Harvey Firestone's statue, and I was walking out with Wada's son. He was head of production at the time, and he said to me, Gamoff, go across the lawn and pull a dandelion. There was the yellow ones and there was the white ones. And so he wanted the white one, so I pulled it. That's the one, you go like that and that stuff blows. And he took it and he cracked it in front of me, and you saw the white juice come out. And he said that someday we will be putting this in the tires in replace of natural rubber, and that they had been working on it already for 10 years, so since 1982. And so when I went to the race last year in Nashville, 2022, guayule made its first appearance. It's a desert plant that grows in Arizona. Tell us about that.
So yeah, if you think about natural rubber, right now, if you've ever seen a video of natural rubber, you think about a Hevea tree. So it's a tree that grows in Southeast Asia, and you've seen those diagonal cuts, the spiral cuts that go through,
right,
and it weeps out this white milky substance, which is latex, which is then smoked and turned into natural rubber, and then we put it in most of our tires. You can get this natural rubber. It occurs naturally in a few different places. Dandelions, like Wada-san had told you about, and then also a guayule shrub. So this is a shrub native to where you're living at right now. So we actually have a center over in Mesa that grows, and we have a bio-rubber process research center that actually runs through and that helps us to understand the plant. We want to have a plant that has the most possible yield it can. So if you think about guayule, instead of having to import it, it grows domestically. Also, just about every part of the plant can be used. So a dandelion, you're looking at the stem. The Hevea, you're looking at the sap that comes off the tree. In the guayule bush, you can use the leaves, you can use the branches, you can use the roots. Just about every part of it has latex in it.
Wow.
So we're working on being able to process that well to get all the latex out, and then trying to make sure we have a very robust plant as well. The really cool thing about latex, or about latex from this particular source, this guayule bush, is it can run in areas that are maybe don't have as much water. Water is a scarce resource, or
Right.
it's hot. So in a place where you would want to grow something like corn or alfalfa, and you can't because it's too hot, this plant is really nice. It uses about half the water that those two plants would.
Wow. So then your team obviously is involved in future research and stuff. Do you see other future applications for this particular guayule?
Yeah, so for guayule, right now we're running it in the sidewall of our street course alternate tires. So Nashville race that you went
Right.
to, and
Green
Toronto,
sidewall,
yep,
right?
green sidewall. So we've made the sidewalls themselves green, so it differentiates them from our regular sidewall. So it's that natural rubber content that's in there. We're also looking at where else we can use that natural rubber content. The other thing we're doing is Bridgestone has some pretty specific and ambitious sustainability goals. By 2050, we want to be 100% material circular in our tires. So that means renewable or sustainable resources that are going into all of our tires. As a tire development engineer background, I really want to make sure that we have that performance, first of all, the safety, performance, reliability, and then being able to introduce these new components. This year at the Indy 500, we actually ran a sustainable monomer. So if you think about the tread compound, most tread compounds these days don't have too much natural rubber, at least in racing. So we're using synthetic rubber. We're able to take something like a recycled plastic or post-consumer waste. You go to Target, you get those shopping bags, and nobody can really recycle them.
Right.
You can turn them in. Some schools will press them into a bench, but again, you have that there. There's no way to really recycle it. So Shell had been developing a method to take some of this post-consumer plastics, like plastic bags, the packaging film, and actually turn it into a monomer. That monomer turns into polymer that goes to our Lake Charles facility, where it turns into a long polymer that we use in racing, and that comes to us in Akron, and we put it in the race tires.
That is amazing. So, like, how many plastic bags does it take to make a tire, or isn't that a number or whatever?
Well, the way we do it, we use the ISCC certification, so it's a mass balance certification. So we get the amount, and that amount we classify it's going into the treads, and we classify it's going out into the race tires. So we've done some calculations, but I'm not sure it's a number that we can quite share.
Sure.
Just due to the ISCC process.
So a follow-up, what is the future of sustainability in Firestone racing tires? And also, didn't I read something about commercial tires? Are we starting to move that guayule into other products?
Yes. So what we're doing right now with guayule is we're working on scaling up the production. So taking the seed and the plant and getting it out in the hands of farmers so they can plant it themselves and then sell it back to us. So there's the guayule front, there's sustainable monomers, we're looking at recycled carbon blacks, using more soybean oil, all kinds of different things in the race tires, things that are basically taking out some of the things that we would use less renewable natural resources, turn them into some of the more sustainable and more circular information.
Oh, that's awesome. So, Cara, I got to tell you, one of my fondest memories in my 39 career with the company was getting up at the crack of dawn, even as the sun was coming up, heading out to the track, 5 a.m., meeting Al Spires, who was director of Motorsports at the time, and our mutual friend, Paige Mader, heading up the tire racing world. There was just this feeling of excitement. We'd be walking, and there'd be various team owners and members, and everybody it was like before Super Bowl. They were congratulating everybody. Hey, good luck today. I saw your time trials, blah, blah, blah. You and your team have prepared all year. This is a big race, and do you feel that same kind of energy for the race, just like I felt?
Yes, it's an energy, it's an anticipation, it's an excitement, it's a peace that you feel race morning. We usually show up at the racetrack right around 4:45 or so. The gates open to the public at 6 with this military bomb that goes off and it signals the gates are open. But before that is almost a hallowed time at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I always have chills every year. Every morning I go down and I just spend some time on pit lane before anybody else can get in. We're the only ones there. You're looking around and you just see the pagoda that's lit up, the timing signs, everything is lit up. And it's a very, very peaceful feeling. It's the calm before the storm. We've gotten here, we've done all the preparation, we've qualified, we've practiced, and now we're ready for the biggest single day motorsports event, single day overall sports event in the whole United States. I always take a picture race morning. I get a picture of the pagoda lit up. It's kind of my tradition. And even the year that we had to postpone the Indianapolis 500 till later in the year in 2020, we ran in the middle of the day, and it was so bizarre to not be there in the morning, not be there first thing, not be there when it's dark. That I went down and I sat down on pit lane with my back to the pit wall, and I just sat there and I just contemplated. I just let the whole experience soak in. So there's that, and then once actually the race is almost about to start, you have the pageantry, you have the taps, you have the anthem, you have Back Home Again in Indiana, and I don't tell anybody this, Johnny G, but almost every year I have tears in my eyes. It's an honor, it's a respect, we are trusted on this most important stage in racing with our product on the racetrack.
No, I know. I got goosebumps just even hearing you say that. So to all my podcastee followers, if you haven't been to Indy 500, it should be on your bucket list. It's definitely a dream come true. So I saw a photo this year of you on the track at Indy with a bunch of technicians, engineers, females. You know, I think back 15 years ago when I retired, that really wouldn't happen. What caused this pendulum to shift where more women are in key roles in racing?
So it has been amazing to see. I'm by no means the first engineer that worked with the series. I mean, when you were there, I think we had a couple of different people. We had Debbie, we had Pam, both working in technical roles within racing. I think we've been, at Firestone, been on the cutting edge there. And even if you think about now, myself, the director of everything technical, and Lisa Boggs, the director of everything marketing, communications, contracts, both women that are running the organization. What's caused the pendulum to switch, to shift? I think it's been a lot. I think you start to see people in roles and you start to have young girls come to the racetrack and say, oh, I might be interested in this. I might not want to be a driver. What other roles can I have? And they don't necessarily have to be a PR role. There are motorsports engineering programs that are going on, IUPY in Indianapolis. They have a motorsports engineering program, and there are initiatives to try to attract females to be in the sport. Chip Ganassi Racing has a program that has an engineering internship for women engineers to try to introduce more women into the sport. So not only that, you start to see more African Americans in the sport too. Maybe a few years ago, there really weren't any. We've got technicians, we've got PR folks, we've got a lot more people. So it's really great to see that diversity in the sport picking up.
Yeah, and one of my idols, Michael Jordan, he got into a NASCAR team, I believe, and maybe that kind of stirred some interest and stuff and excitement. So what advice would you give to women wanting a career in racing today?
So one of my pieces of advice that I give to young ladies that are trying to get a role in any form of engineering or medicine or really any form of science, find somebody that does a role and ask questions. One of the great things that I realized early on in my career is people like to talk about themselves. So if you find somebody in an area that you're interested in, ask them questions about what they do. The other piece of advice that I always give is sign up for something that's not quite comfortable. If somebody asks you if you would like to do something that you think, I'm not sure whether I'm going to be quite that good at, stand up, volunteer for that. And one other last piece of advice is if you're looking at a job and you think, oh, I meet 80% of that job criteria, apply anyway.
Good advice. All right, so Cara, this year we've done something different. It's called Rapid Fire. I'm just going to shoot something at you, and first thing that pops off your mind, okay? So the age you knew you wanted to get into racing?
18.
18, okay. First tire you helped develop?
The IndyCar rain tire.
IndyCar rain tire, okay. Most memorable race you've ever been to?
Ooh, that one's tough. Surfers Paradise, Australia. It was 2008, and it was just for the amazing surroundings, pageantry, amazing.
Oh, I got married in Australia, by the way.
Great place.
Favorite post-race beverage?
Oh, milk.
Milk, okay.
500, that's the only one.
That's it, okay. What's your favorite restaurant here in Akron, Ohio?
Oh, I have so many. Crave, probably.
Crave?
Yes.
Okay. And so when you want to get away, where do you go?
My best friend Catherine Legg has a house out on Lake Lanier in Atlanta. I love going there. Just out in nature is really my key. Going on a hike, going on a jog, bike ride. Beautiful.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being part of Johnny G and Friends. Congratulations and good luck for the rest of your racing season here. You've had a lot of successes. Keep them going.
Excellent. Thank you, Johnny G.
All right. Thanks, Cara.
You don't need magic to disappear for a while, because Firestone tires were built for ticking off mile markers. Firestone Destination LE3 tires for 70,000 miles of exploring. Whatever you drive, drive a Firestone.